What's up, YouTube? Today's guest is a seasoned alt investor who has worn many hats throughout his career and has successfully navigated multiple markets. He served in the United States Air Force, thank you for your service, before venturing into real estate and crypto. But it doesn't stop there. Recently, he purchased a cash flowing e commerce business. It's an honor to have Nick here to share his journey, thoughts, and perspective on investing and entrepreneurship. Nick, hello.
Hey, how's it
How
going?
are you,
Thanks for
Nick?
having me. Yeah, good. I'm honored to be the guest here on your show.
Yeah, you are the first human guest we have, Nick.
That's amazing.
We are honored to have you here too. Don't forget that.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. So tell us about your
Yeah.
background and life before being an investor.
Okay, so I pretty much grew up in Texas and California. Um, my family was a really strict Asian family type of upbringing, so a lot of it was focused on education, getting all A's, things like that. So there wasn't really a whole lot of discussion about money. I just knew that we were doing okay. We didn't have to worry about any bills or anything like that, and I kind of just ignored it. They never really discussed budgeting or saving money or investing or anything like that with us. All it was just get good grades in school, go to college, the whole American dream, right? So growing up, I didn't really learn too much about finances. It wasn't until I got my first job I started realizing like, hey, I can make some money and I can start spending it. So I was just spending every single check I was getting in high school. And then my first real job was the United States Air Force. So I joined that right after high school in '07. And then from there, I was making every single financial mistake an 18-year-old fresh in the military E1 could make. Bought a car, racked up credit card bills, didn't know anything about finances until finally there was a there was a chance that I was going to get medically separated for some health issues. So then I realized, hey, the Air Force has been taking care of me this whole time. Didn't have to worry about any bills, anything like that, right? Because everything was taken care of. Then I realized I could actually get kicked out at this point. So I didn't have any money saved up to my name. And then I finally realized it's time to turn my finances around. I had a ton of debt. I think I racked up maybe like $40,000 in debt at one point was the peak of just junk, right? Nothing to really show for it. So we didn't have as much access to information as we do now with all the finfluencers and influencers and YouTube and Instagram and things like that. Back then, it was around maybe 2010 was when I started really buckling down. So I had to Google pretty much articles every single day. I would come home from work and I would Google just simple stuff like how to save $500, how to save $1,000, how to get out of debt. So a lot of it was just self-taught because none of this was taught to me when I was a kid, and I don't fault my parents for that. They just didn't know back then what was supposed to be taught and things like that, right? Or what was important. Um, so I started teaching myself basic personal finance principles through these articles. And then, of course, the very first one, how to get out of debt, is Dave Ramsey, right? So Dave Ramsey's baby steps, snowball debt plan. That I actually used that technique to get out of my debt. And so by 2012, I was debt free, completely debt free, and I started saving up money. So I was selling everything. I was selling a bunch of junk in your room. You'd be surprised how much junk you have in your room that you could sell that people would want to buy real quick. So I sold a ton of stuff in my dorm room when I was in the military, and I was just saving up every single paycheck I could, living below my means, not eating out a whole lot, not really hanging out with my friends a whole lot, which is fine because I got it out of my system when I was spending my checks. And then it kind of became addicting. So there was like kind of this I need to keep saving money, keep saving money. Then like 1,000 became 5,000, became 10,000, then 30,000. So I had $30,000 saved up by the time I separated from the military, and it just never stopped. That the ball just kept rolling. Start investing, start learning more, and that's kind of how I ended up here. Of course, when you get into a relationship with somebody, you got to talk about finances too. So at that time, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, we were on the same page about finances. And actually, I had a second epiphany when we were dating. She had her bank account up on her computer on accident or something like that. I kind of glanced at it, and she had like $120,000 saved up, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like I'm way behind. I'm way behind. I had a measly like 10 grand at that time, and I was like, "Okay, cool, she's on the same page, and that kind of pushed me to keep saving even more. So that's how we ended up here. You know, I got out in 2014. And so since 2014 till now, I've just been investing, looking for new opportunities, saving, pretty much just putting money where I think has opportunities, and it's
So
been working out so well.
so when did you stop that mindset of, saving and start investing?
That's a good question. So we did save a ton. We were just savers, right? We were savers. We actually thought a high yield savings account was a great investment. It was like 3% at the time, maybe, and we are just like, oh, great. But it wasn't until we had about, so my wife and I at the time, I think 2019, about around 2019, we had like $650,000 saved up in just cash. And I realized like this cash is doing nothing for us sitting in these savings accounts. I had a couple, I was dabbling in stocks here and there, but it wasn't too serious. And I remembered my whole life, like every time I talked to somebody that was successful, they always brought up real estate. And that kind of stuck in the back of my mind. And so finally I talked to my wife at the time, or I mean she's still my wife now, but I talked to my I talked to
That's
my
good to
wife.
hear. It's good to hear.
Yeah, yeah. And I told her, I'm like, hey, we have a ton of money saved up. We need to do something with this money, and I think real estate is what we really need to pursue. And she kind of just entrusted me with everything, all of our life savings, all of our income, and she was just kind of like, I know this is what you want to do. Just go ahead and focus on it, and I'll let you take care of everything. And that's exactly what I did. I took care of everything. A lot of sleepless nights. I live in Japan, so I did everything super late at night to match the East Coast time. A lot of sacrifices, but definitely a lot of reward by pursuing real estate.
So what was your first real estate investment?
I actually bought 6 houses in 2020, right when the market like crashed, the economy crashed because of COVID. But the housing market was doing pretty well, and so I bought 6 houses right off the bat with all that money that we had saved up. I think we used up about maybe $400,000 all in with renovations and down payments and things like that.
Do you mind
And
sharing? Go ahead.
so no, no, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask where they are.
Oh yeah. So I had 6 properties in Indiana, but one of the challenges that you face in real estate is that rules are always changing. So I did have a house in Indianapolis that the HOA didn't like how many investors were buying in their area. So we pretty much got forced to sell our house because they weren't approving lease renewals for investors specifically. They just wanted residents to own and live in those houses, which I understand. So that's kind of a big challenge that I'm facing right now with HOAs. So if I have any advice really right now is just try to look for properties that don't have HOAs because you do have to follow their rules. And so I did end up having to sell a house last year, but there was a nice chunk of profit. I think I made like $100,000 in profit in about 2 years worth of holding that property. So now I only have 5 in Indiana, really nice
For
areas.
those who don't know, what is a HOA?
It's a homeowners association, so they pretty much control everything in the neighborhood, making sure everything is nice and clean. Amenities are updated. They have a lot of rules you have to follow. Like you can't let the grass grow so high. Bushes need to be trimmed. Even mailboxes. I had to replace a mailbox because they wanted all of our mailboxes to be the exact same. So I spent like $200 on a brand new mailbox. That's just an example. Like you can't paint your house like some bright neon color, things like that. They just enforce rules on the neighborhood to keep the value and the quality high for their residents. That's all it is.
Right. And it's
So Nick, I have a follow up to that real quick.
Sure.
So you said you're in Japan. So like when you had to make the change to the mailbox, how did you go about that? Did you have to like hire somebody to do that for you, or did you know somebody that would like do that?
Yes, absolutely. So I got the notice from the HOA and then I sent that to my property manager. So I have a property manager that manages all of my properties, so I don't have to deal with any of the interactions between myself and the tenants. They're kind of the gatekeepers, the middleman, if you will. And so they handle everything. They make sure they get the handymans out there to fix things that need to be fixed. I actually had a handyman go out there and replace the mailbox. So all I had to do was buy the mailbox, and then that person went to go pick it up, replaced it, and disposed of the old one for a small fee.
How did
So
you
the property
find
manager handles everything.
the property manager? Like, how do you find a good one too?
So at the very start of my real estate investing, I guess, journey, I studied a lot of YouTube videos and articles, and the number one thing that came up was you have to have a strong network of people, and that network of people starts with the real estate agent. So the agent, more 9 times out of 10, is already going to have a system of contacts that they already have that they can share with you, especially if that real estate agent is an investor in real estate himself or themselves. And that's exactly what I did. I contacted a investor mindset real estate agent to help me find deals, and he actually shared with me his entire list of connections, and you can kind of pick and choose what fits your needs. And so I built my team off of his contacts, and I've been using them for the past 3 years. And so that's how I found a property manager, was through my real estate agent, and he's been that team has been absolutely amazing.
So you got lucky, man. You first try success.
Right. Aside from that one house that forced me to sell the house, but yes, I think I did pretty well right off the bat. The market's been blowing up, even with the way the economy is right now. I'm more of like a buy and hold kind of person. I don't really care too much about the values. I would like to pull out equity and use that money towards other investments, but right now it's just they're all just cash flowing dominant investments.
Okay, awesome. So
Right.
that's your real estate journey, right? And you also dabbled into crypto. Can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that? I know it's a crazy transition. Tell us about how too. How did you find out about it and what happened?
Right. So I guess the timeline is I started with stocks. So I had invested about 6 figures in stocks, and then when I made the jump to real estate, I actually sold everything so I can use it towards down payments on the houses. Which, looking back, I shouldn't have, because it was actually right before the 2020 COVID pandemic. I actually, maybe that's probably lucky that I did that, because I sold it at my personal all-time high, so I made profit off of that and used those profits to buy real estate. Then I got all into real estate. I didn't want to buy any other investments, and then I realized, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Just diversify if you feel comfortable diversifying. So I went back into stocks, and then that got kind of boring, right? Dollar cost averaging, nothing too fancy. ETFs, index funds, we all hear about it all the time. And then I started hearing more and more about crypto. A lot of institutional money was pouring into crypto at that time. I think it was like the
What
end of
year was that?
2021.
Yeah.
At the end of 2021, like mid 2021 was when I started getting that kind of crypto bug in my ear. So I started doing even more research on it. It wasn't too crazy, but then I was like, you know what, this is a bet I'm willing to make. And of course, with these kind of risky investments, you have to understand your risk tolerance. Take a risk tolerance assessment, take a personal finance assessment, try to see where you're at in that sense. And so I figured, you know what, I can afford to kind of take this risk with this investment. And so I put about $100,000 into crypto right off the bat, November 2021. Some of those are doing pretty good, and some of those aren't doing very well. But it was just something that I believed in, and I still do believe in. I still dollar cost average into the two main ones, which is Bitcoin and Ethereum. Um, I believe in the system behind it and the blockchain technology. So that's kind of what pushed me, was the fact that a lot of institutional money was going into it. It was getting a lot of attention, and I did my own research. That's the important thing, is you can't just trust what other people say. You have to do your own research.
Always do your own research.
DYOR, right? That's right, and not financial advice.
Right.
I'm
So
just a regular guy
Always.
taking chances.
always. All right. So I know from personal, just from being friends, that you purchased some expensive NFTs, right? NFTs
Yes.
are on the Ethereum blockchain, right? All Ethereum.
Yes, right now I have all Ethereum.
Tell us a little bit about like what was your most expensive NFT purchase. You don't have to go into detail. You don't have to name any of them. Just throw some fun numbers and fun stories, maybe horror stories. You tell us.
Yeah. So the most expensive one I purchased was, at the time, was worth $50,000. And I guess you can guess, it was around January 2022, I think, was when I purchased it. And that actually made me a lot of money. There was a lot of money that came with it, a lot of free things that came with it, a lot of airdrops, a lot of benefits. So I really like that about NFTs is there's a lot of endless opportunities that can come from this type of technology. And then other NFTs that I invested into aren't doing very well. They kind of just died off. And like I said, that was another risk that I was willing to take. I did also put another $100,000 worth of Ethereum into my NFT kind of like spending spree. And like I said, it's just a risk that I was willing to take. And one in particular has actually paid off pretty nicely, and the other ones have kind of just died off. I'm just gonna hold them, kind of whatever, maybe gift them to like friends or something just for fun. But um, like I said, again, the technology behind it, I do believe in. As an example, I just got an email. So I'm originally from California, and I just got an email saying that a lot of the card titles are going to be NFT form now on the blockchain, to
Woo!
prevent like fraud and stuff like
Wow.
that. Yeah, yeah. So that's actually pretty cool. That you can use that technology in practical terms like that.
Right. So you're pretty optimistic about the future of the blockchain.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice.
There's
Nick,
definitely
I
case uses for it.
I have a follow up for the NFTs that you bought. When you're buying NFTs, do you buy it based off of who's involved, or you base it off of like the utility and what would come with buying that NFT?
That's a good question. There's a lot of stuff that goes into researching an NFT project. When I was really into it, I would make sure that the founders were doxed, look at their white paper, see their website, look at their website, see if it's not poorly made, any misspellings, things like that. And you also want to make sure that there is utility. I did target ones that did have utility, whether it be for personal gain or just for the good of the environment, things like that, like saving the environment or animals or some kind of idea like that, adopting a endangered species animal, something like that. So that's pretty cool. Utilities, and of course the ones that do pay you back. Obviously, those are the most valuable ones that you want to get into. Absolutely. But to answer your question, I do look for utility mostly. Um, I don't really care too much about the art, but there are some that I did buy because of the art, and then maybe just the community access that comes with it. So that's another reason, is that the community that you access is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, for one, that's how we met. Through
That is
Yeah, exactly.
these kind of spaces. Through it, now Nick's in our Discord, and that's the best place to find friends. If you're
Yeah,
not inclined to, even if you're not an investor, you're a new investor, you've been investing for years, this is the way to find people. That's why we create our Discord. So join. I'll have the link in the caption below. But thank you for sharing your crypto story. And most recently, this is fun. So I want to hear more about this, and I want to hear the updates on this. Your micro acquisition of your e-commerce site, right? Can you tell us about that?
yeah, absolutely. So I was pursuing this for a very long time. Actually, I did probably about another 6 months worth of research before I pulled the trigger on something like this. And I knew that people who are wealthy or built wealth, you have to own. That's the main idea, is you have to own. So whether that be stocks, real estate, and then a business, you have to own. So I knew that I wanted to expand my portfolio and own a business. So I wanted to own something that was a cash flowing business already. I don't have time or the patience to really learn everything on my own and start something from scratch. And so I actually researched a lot of different platforms that sell already made businesses, and I ended up on one called Empire Flippers. And the reason why I like Empire Flippers is because they have acquisition assistance, like transition assistance, where there's a middle person and they help the seller and the buyer make sure everything is secured before they send the money. They kind of act like an escrow account. So they handle all the passwords, and then they handle all the money. And once everything is agreed upon on both sides, everything is good to go, then they allow that transaction to happen, which is cool. Not only that, Empire Flippers does do their own vetting process of these businesses. Out of all the businesses that want to be listed and are applied to get listed on Empire Flippers, I want to say about 90% of them get turned away by their internal auditing team, which is really, it gives you a good peace of mind because there are other platforms that don't do that. And so you could buy a lemon of a business, right? They can doctor up all their numbers all they want, and when you make the sale, it's all sales are final. Another good thing about Empire Flips I really love is they give you, I believe, like a 1 or 2 week grace period where if it doesn't cash flow as advertised, you can get a refund. They reverse that entire transaction, and so that's why I picked Empire Flippers as a platform for me to look for a business, and not sponsor or anything. It's just something that I really like to use, and I do plan on using them again in the future for another business. So I found this business. It's an app business that was cash flowing about $1,000 a month and a ton of opportunity for growth. So I don't know how to code or anything like that. So I had a conversation with the previous owner slash seller, and he was saying that I could just hire a VA to handle the day to day. I could hire the developer to handle the support requests, and the developer can create new features, which is an opportunity for growth for this app. And so that's what I've been doing ever since, and just kind of overseeing the business, making sure that it's growing as it should.
So do you want to shout out your business, or
Definitely plug it up.
yeah, plug up your
Yeah, it's
business? Let us
a
know what it's called.
it's a Shopify. It's a Shopify app called Easy Shipping Restrictions, and it pretty much restricts shippings for mom and pop shops that have online presence. So as an example that I always use is, let's say a mom and pop shop sells meat products and they don't want to ship meat outside of their little city, right? So that's when they would use our app. It's very niche market type of product, and like I said, there's a lot of opportunity for growth on this, and that's what I'm working with my developer to kind of expand with. So yeah, easy shipping restrictions. It's a Shopify app. Pretty interesting.
Well, first off, congratulations, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. So what is your what kind of hours do you have to put into this business? So I know you oversee it in your day to day, but how often do you actually work hands on with it?
I probably check everything at least once a day. I don't even put more than an hour into it. I kind of make sure that the VA is doing what they need to do. I make sure the developer is doing what they need to do, and then I kind of answer questions and emails that are directed to me as the owner. A lot of it is like collaboration and things like that, or other businesses that want to acquire that app. So I kind of just talk to them, try to build your network. Everything's about networking, and then also making sure that there's not a whole lot of spam in our email, ton of spam in our email, but just making sure everything's going smoothly. We did upgrade the source code recently, so now all of the bugs that people are experiencing it should be fixed, or it will be fixed, uh, because my developer he worked day and night to kind of rewrite the entire code for that because it was genuinely a buggy kind of app at first, and so he really turned it around. So I'm really happy about that. So things are looking pretty good for it now.
I love to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. So what advice would you give to somebody looking to get started in the world of investing?
I would say absolutely number one, it sounds corny, but you have to educate yourself. You have to learn. You can't just jump into something without knowing at least the basics of personal finance or investing. You have to understand what budgeting is. You have to understand what income expenses are. You have to track your net worth, track everything. The same thing with personal finances. If you track everything, you could always look back on that information and kind of make certain tweaks either month to month or year to year. So number one advice is to just learn, just be a sponge. Never stop learning. I'm always learning. Right now I'm actually learning about commercial real estate because I want to jump into commercial real estate sometime in the future. That's where the big money is made. I want to either sell my current properties or pull out the equity using what's called a cash out refi, and then putting that towards an apartment complex or storage, self storage units, or laundromat, things like that. So I don't really know, but I'm learning about that right now as we speak. So always learn, and then once you're kind of have a foundation of knowledge, that's when you go out there and start searching for opportunities and investments. And you have to actually commit and execute, because having these ideas and thinking about doing things isn't going to do anything for you. You have to actually execute and take action.
Oh yeah, man. So you have an exciting story, and it looks like you have an exciting journey ahead of you too. Where can people find you if they want to find you? Is it possible? Are you off social media, or do you still have somewhere to be found?
I'm off social media right now just because it was kind of difficult to keep up with. But you can email me if you really want to learn or need advice or anything like that. I do have an email that's connected to my old social media presence, which is numoneyniq@gmail.com. It's spelled numoneyniq@gmail.com.
Awesome.
We'll make sure to put that below too.
All right. So thanks everyone for joining us on our first interview. John, do you have anything to add before we leave?
Yeah, the one thing that really like caught my mind the whole time, and it started off with the first question was, this all started like if Nick, everything you explained is incredible, and it all started because you looked up how to just save $500, and throughout the whole
That's
time you were
awesome.
talking, everything came back to you looking something up or doing research, and I think a lot of people need to understand that nothing's just going to come to you or get handed to you at times. You have to be willing to do the research and put in some of them hours, and it seems like it's completely paid off so far for you, and it's incredible.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you noticed that. That's actually a pretty good point.
That is
Yeah,
an
always
excellent
keep
book.
learning.
Start with. I love how you said you started with the article like how to save $500, and look where you're at now.
Yeah,
Like it actually works. It's
serious.
not a waste of time to scroll through, but this is why we do it. We have a whole entire website, 100 plus articles, financialprofessional.com. That's where you can also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube now. So thank you, Nick, for joining us. John, thank you. Peace out.
Thank you for joining us, Nick. We really
No,
appreciate it.
absolutely. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
All right. Bye, everyone.